Welcome, Canada, to your favorite show. And welcome all lawyers, present and future, who are being paid to watch this show to try and sue me in the point in time. Remember, you're the real MVPs. And never have it be said that I don't like lawyers, because so far, from what I've been told, it's been like nearly $500,000 to your community being paid to come after little old me. So you're welcome. And if you are a lawyer, just leave a like and a subscribe and leave a comment, maybe who's paying you, how you're suing me. It would be much appreciated. And if you're not suing me, also leave a like and a comment and a follow and a share and whatever. We have a great show for you tonight, so strap in. First, we're going to go into the Sir John A. MacDonald statue going down, the left cheering it, Justin Trudeau jumping in and being extremely disappointed. Basically, his job dividing the country. Then I want to go over the difference in the media coverage in the Portland shooting and the Kenosha shootings, and of course, how that's going to cause a civil war. Then we have a Liberal minister, Bardish Chagger, obviously lying on the WE scandal, getting caught, but nothing will happen to her. And again, I want to point out some hypocrisy here. Then we have a pew, pew, pew shootout in Toronto and Brampton. A cemetery in Brampton leaves 3 injured in a shootout, and a bakery, 2 a.m. shooting in Little Jamaica leaves 6 injured. Then there's a very important story in BC that we can't name any of the people involved because that's illegal in this free country. We have basically, remember when crazy Jordan Peterson said people might go to jail with Bill C-16 for compelled speech. Well, a father's about to go to jail, or might go to jail on contempt charges for standing up to gender ideology. Now, I want to get into a rant about George Soros because there was a stupid controversy where I'll just say it, the idiots who call themselves representatives of the Jewish community in the Zionist lobby went after a conservative member of parliament for doing, God's work and criticizing George Soros, which is not anti-Semitic, it's philo-Semitic, if anything. We got some fun stories we'll throw in the mix, and just have a great time watching. Announcement, though. I am making my return out of semi-retirement. It's been a few years, so stand-up comedy this Friday in Toronto. If you want to know where that is, just leave a comment if you're on YouTube, send me a message if you're on Facebook or Twitter or somewhere else, and I will happily answer where you can this Friday, September the 4th, see me ramble and rant in a way that might get me kicked back out of comedy. Okay. Story 1. Sir John A. MacDonald used to be a relatively non-controversial figure in Canada. First Prime Minister of Canada, one of our, I wouldn't say founding fathers, because one of the founders of Canada, first Prime Minister. They decided to topple his statue in Montreal. It was a group of far-left crazies. Now, everyone was able to condemn this, except for Justin Trudeau, who it took 2 days in his home city. Again, Montreal, he's a Quebecer. This is his home. He's the Prime Minister of Canada. John A. MacDonald, first Prime Minister of Canada. It took him 2 days to say anything about it, in which he didn't condemn them, but he was extremely disappointed. Oh, Justin Trudeau's extremely disappointed, guys. I guess that means you should stop rioting. The other thing is, Justin Trudeau, in Justin Trudeau fashion, decides to do what he does best and divide the country and say, you know who's dividing Canadians on the John A. MacDonald statue? The far right. Clearly, it's those crazy far-righters who are using the left, toppling a statue, to create division. And that's the real problem here. It's not that the radical left is on our streets. The police will watch them destroy our history, and then the political establishment will do nothing about it. The real problem is those crazy far-right people who say, don't topple statues of Sir John A. MacDonald. So being a far-right, don't destroy the country, or as I am being labeled, I would like to push back on this. And I made videos on this before, but I'm not a very religious person. In fact, I'm not a religious person. But this new movement, this whatever, it's not even Antifa, Black Lives Matter, whatever this coalition of far-left anti-racism is, it's a new religion. And it acts exactly like that. And you saw it in the last few months of the BLM marches, the Antifa marches, up to these sort of racial justice marches, because it has a puritanical sense. Right? There's a puritanical element to it. Sir John A. MacDonald has violated their precepts, right? And these precepts are universal, and there is no time. So, right, just so how Christians believe that Jesus was the perfect man and spans time, and Muslims mean Muhammad is the perfect man and that spans all time, you have the radical left, which believes their morals, as of now, are the absolute moral ideology, and it spans all time. So we can't even go back 150 years and sort of look into context and bring it back. Okay, so John MacDonald, yes, he started the residential schools, and yes, those are bad. But he also fought back on the liberals, proposing even more and insane and racist ways to hurt the indigenous communities. So it's a complicated issue. And also, in 1867, you know what the most common remedy was for people being different than you? Just kill them all. That was most of human history. Most of human history is tragedy after tragedy after genocide with a few silly anecdotes thrown in between. That's human history, okay? And Canada's history is not perfect. No one ever claims it is. But it is a lot better than most places. And the argument is, John A. MacDonald, you might not have liked the Indian Act. I don't like the Indian Act. We still have it around. It's silly. It's stupid. But to tear down the statue of the founding Prime Minister of Canada, in a sense, you are rejecting the country that you are in now. Because for good or bad, whatever John A. MacDonald did, and remember, this guy would get drunk and just get lost for a couple weeks. We just didn't know where. Can you imagine living in a time where we just don't know where the Prime Minister is because he's on a bender? Great times. Right? This man built Canada. Right? Helped build Canada. So it wasn't perfect. Right? There were points in our history where I, as a Jewish Canadian, say I didn't like it. Remember in World War II, the line of Jewish refugees, none is too many. Do I hate Canada, think it's an anti-Semitic place? No. Because the Canadian soldiers were the ones who went overseas and fought to build a world and a Canada where everyone is equal right now. They fought and we struggled and we built a world because, yeah, Canada in the 1930s was anti-Semitic. But by 1930 standards, not really. I mean, yeah, they didn't take in Jewish refugees. They also didn't commit the Holocaust, which is a lot better than committing a Holocaust. So let's get back to the religion that is wokeism. The wokeism religion goes as follows, right? There is a fundamental precept of values, and it is what our leaders say right now. And there are leaders, right? There are priests who put it out. You have priest of wokeness, Sean King. You have priest of anti-Semitism. Social justice, Linda Sarsour. Right? You have the different priests. You have your books, your white fragility, your how to be an anti-racist. Right? These are best-selling books and doctrines, and you have to be them. And it's amazing. There's even a concept of original sin in wokeism, except there is no pathway to salvation. Right? At least in Christianity, you have a pathway to salvation through Christ. There is no salvation through wokeness. Right? So this is the woke religion right here. And you see it in sort of the Black Lives Matter marches were the best example of the wokeness religion. Because it is everything you had. You had the chanting, and you had the cheering, and you get up and you say the chants. You go to the church, which is the protest, and you scream, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Then you perform the rituals. Then you kneel down. You take the knee, you put the fist up, right? Last week we covered how they wanted everyone to put the fist up. This is the same as Islamist mobs going through towns demanding you pay homage to Allah. Either pay the jizya, right? Convert, pay the jizya, leave or die. Right? And this is sort of where the wokeness religion is getting to, right? Do our symbol, bow down, take a knee, do the supplications. But the religious thing goes even further than this. And this is why it's a paganistic evil religion. Right? Not all religions are evil. The religion of wokeness is. Because it has no morality, let's say, other than just follow the leader. Because how are you supposed to get salvation as a white person, right? In the white fragility book, you can't talk about race because you're a white person, right? And you got to step back. But if you don't address race, you're a racist because you're not fighting to commit racism, right? So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, original sin of being white. But what's the absolution here? So the absolution isn't taking personal responsibility, right? Like I said, again, at least in Christianity, you have to take responsibility. You have to apologize. You have to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. You have to do something, right? That's about you. But in the religion of wokeness, what do you have to do? Right? You have to say, this is how you absolve yourself. You don't ever take personal responsibility. You say, my evilness is this. It's the white skin. So it's not an individual trait that I have that is evil. It's not my sins that I must absolve for. My sin is simply whiteness. And the way I get rid of it is I say all white people are evil. And that's how I absolve myself personally from the mob. So I get to be a good one. Right? But then it never even takes the fact that your intentions, your actions might have been the ones that caused you to do immoral actions. No, it was simply the pigmentation of your skin. Simply that. It's an external thing. And how do you absolve yourself personally? Well, by you throw all your sins onto the whiteness, and you say, those people, right? Those people are my sins, right? That's a paganistic religion. and it's a stupid religion too, and you shouldn't abide by it. All right, now back to where it gets us today. Because you have Sir John A. Macdonald being toppled in Montreal, and it takes Justin Trudeau 2 days to get around to saying this is a bad thing. Not even this is a bad thing. He's just extremely disappointed. Guys, you disappointed Daddy Trudeau, right? He was very upset with your toppling down of the statue. We still don't even know if we're going to put it back up. This is a very controversial issue, according to the CBC. I watched them. They're like, oh, very controversial, Sir John A. Macdonald. So if John A. Macdonald's controversial, then all of Canada is controversial. And you wonder why people reject this stuff. You wonder why people who just, were moderate 2 years ago are now considered far right because they don't want to destroy all of Canadian history. This is how you get there. This is how you get there, by saying, tearing down Sir John A. Macdonald's statues, mobs tearing him down, police doing nothing. This is very controversial. Very controversial. Could you imagine if the entire left was able to say, this doesn't speak for us? Listen, we want to talk about racial justice and social justice and indigenous rights. Fine. But tearing down Canadian history, right? Like ISIS going through and destroying all the artwork and statues beforehand, right? And I'll even go on the Muslim thing. Right? This is even worse than that, because to contextualize Islam, right? We should never, have a statue of a slave owner. Well, Muhammad owned slaves. And yes, I know he doesn't have statues because you can't draw pictures of him, but he wrote a book. Right? And if you want to make the context that Muhammad is a great prophet, which I'm happy you can do, in order to do that, you need to go back 1,400 years and look at the context of what was Arabia 1,400 years ago, and look at his morality and appeal to that society. But wokeness doesn't even do this. It is ever changing. Every day the morality updates, and you must be lockstep in line with it, or else you're excommunicated, and therefore evil. And this type of stuff is going to destroy the country. It's going to destroy the country. And it drives me crazy. But you know what doesn't drive me crazy? This next story. So I love this story because Sarah Sanders was trending on Twitter for this story. Let's bring up the first tweet. We have a leftist just going nuts. So what happened is, Sarah Sanders' new memoir, she said that at a summit, Kim Jong-un, dictator of North Korea, winked at her, and Trump joked, hey, maybe you should fly over to North Korea to take one for the team. Obviously a joke. This guy did not get the joke. Oh my God, Donald Trump actually tried to pimp out Sarah Sanders. Yes, Donald Trump legitimately tried to pimp out Sarah Sanders. This is how insane the left is. You say, oh, that's just one random guy on Twitter and the left is going crazy. Let's show the next thing. Let's stealth Islamist Mehdi Hassan. He fell for it too. Blue checkmark. Al Jazeera journalist Mehdi Hassan. He's also going, oh my God, Sarah Sanders thought this was a joke? Yeah, because it's an obvious joke. Congratulations to the left, you've killed humor. All right. So the next story has a little bit to do with our first story. And this is the concept of the Kenosha versus Portland thing. And I made the point that, why is rioting enabled by the left? And here's the logic being used by the left to enable it. Let's bring up this blue checkmark journalist and this tweet. I love this. All liberal arguments against looting are racist, full stop. All liberal arguments against looting are racist, full stop. Okay, I think, again, I can make a liberal argument against looting. I can make a conservative argument against looting. I can make an argument in Chinese against looting, even though I don't speak a word of it. I can make a standard ethical argument against looting. But to say that arguments against looting are racist, full stop, plays on this mentality that the left has. And it's the racist, it's a soft bigotry of low expectations. And the logic from the left and this guy, Dan Ariel, usually goes something along the lines of this. Racism is so out there in the ether. It is so terrible. It is so oppressive. It destroys people's mental capacities. And, well, yes, racism is bad. And I can show you studies where it does cognitively negatively affect people. But the argument that racism is so bad, so when something bad happens, black people, brown people have no choice. They just lose all self-control and then just start burning and looting. Why can, it's racist, remember. So I love Daniel to explain to me why, when something bad happens to white people, let's say the Trump supporting white people, right? When it's proven that the Russia collusion story was a hoax, why can white Trump supporters control their rage and not burn down a city? But when someone with a criminal record gets shot by police and the circumstances are still a bit iffy, why does looting must happen? And we saw Minneapolis, where you had police confront a guy who was an actual murderer, and he killed himself before the cops could get to him, and Minneapolis still burned down in a looting. Is it racist to say that, hey, you shouldn't burn down your city? Or is it more racist to say, as soon as, people of color hear anything, they're just going to immediately start burning down things because that's how they are? Because that's Dan Ariely's argument. So let's recap what we know about the Kenosha shooting. All right, because I watch the CBC, as I tend to do sometimes to, degrade my mental health. So in Kenosha, we had Jacob Blake being killed by police. Now we know the whole story, or most of the story. Details have started to go out where we can actually break down what happened. So Jacob Blake was at the house of an ex-girlfriend that he had abused and sexually assaulted before. She had a restraining order against him. He came to her house and stole her keys and was withholding them. She called the police. The police are responding to an arrest, a situation where there's an abuser, right, a physical and sexual abuser, at a woman's house where he has a history of physically and sexually abusing her. This guy's a criminal record, including, resisting arrest and assaulting police. They go and try and arrest him. He resists. They try non-lethal means. They try tasing him. Doesn't work. He goes to his car. As he goes to reach into his car, which they found a knife in, he is shot. Okay? Now, the only thing that made it out originally was the last bits of the clip where he's walking away from the police and then gets shot going into the car. Again, if you're going into a car, you might have a weapon there. You might have a gun. That's a split-second decision. And this guy had already been resisting arrest. They tried tasing. They tried everything else. It did not work, right? This caused widespread riots. Now, I want to go to the interesting thing, is the Twitter checkmark journalists have made the argument that, all arguments against looting are racist, implying that all the looting by black people and brown people is fine. Riddle me this, Batman. Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy who shot 3 rioters, all of his victims were white. So, I get it. All arguments against looting are racist. Let's just take that to be the truth, okay? Black people are allowed to loot whenever they want, and to say no is racism. Let's just take that argument, fine. Why can white people loot and riot? Riddle me that. And again, as I've said before, when I say violent Black Lives Matter activists, 99% of the time I'm talking about random white people. And that was true in Kenosha, right? The pedophile who got shot in the head first, there's video that came out that shows gunshots went off first. Kyle Rittenhouse had been being attacked, he had taken shelter, he heard gunshots, people were coming after him, and he fired at the people coming after him. Shot a pedophile in the head, okay? Then we see in the video, he goes to see if that guy's okay. He takes out the phone and tries to call the police. Then the mob comes after him. Then he runs away from the mob coming after him because he doesn't want to get involved. He tries to go to the police. He gets tackled by the mob. He goes down. Someone with a skateboard hits him. Another guy runs at him with a gun. They try and take his gun. He then fires at the people who are attacking him. Self-defense. But you didn't hear any of that in the media. It was immediately, he murdered people. I tried having this conversation with my very intelligent family, who's not even that far left. And they just, it was a scary thing with the mob mentality is they just would not listen and had no desire to say, hey, there might be a video that disproves your claim. How would you feel if the entire media was coming after you for something you did, yet there was a multitude of video evidence proving the contrary, and people just didn't want to listen to it because, it might make them unpopular in their friend group. Whoa, no, we can't talk about that. So it was the opinion of the left-wing people, and even some of the centrist people in my family. This was a murder in cold blood, in cold blood in the middle of a riot. Insane, fundamentally insane. But this turned into a big thing, and you had the media, going after the shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse, and everyone was trying to find out, did he have affiliations to these radical groups? He had posted he was a Blue Lives Matter supporter. Yeah, and I said in the video, Kyle Rittenhouse's background matters. The people, his victims, matters. If you kill people in a riot, right, the organizations they're a part of matter. It matters, right? However, certain things don't matter. If he posted Blue Lives Matter, that is irrelevant. If he posted kill all Antifa commies, that matters, because that might be prior intent to hurt or kill people of a certain political persuasion, right? Same thing with the victims of that shooting. If they had been posting Black Lives Matter, defund the police, that is irrelevant, because that's just political things. However, if they were saying, we're going to kill all Trump supporters, kill all fascists, kill, 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 if that was their social media, then that might show intent to do harm to the other side, right? So that is very relevant in this case, right? Now, the media was dead set against that. No. It does not matter Jacob Blake's background. It does not matter the background of the Antifa people who Rittenhouse shot. It doesn't matter. They're victims. Everything they did prior is of no consequence. Trump, 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 evil. Conservatives, evil. But then the next week, there's a shooting in Portland where an Antifa militant looks like in the video, someone says there's a Trump supporter, and you don't really see it. I've looked at the video. It's a bit grainy. Trump supporter looks to be shot. Maybe it's in cold blood. Maybe he was reaching for something. The video is grainy. You can't tell. There's no definitive evidence. But the more important thing is, all of a sudden, the media's morality shifted like that, like on a dime. Then it became of the utmost importance to know what the background of the victim was. Then the victim's background was full thing. I saw a whole thing on the CBC. They didn't mention for once that the shooter called himself 100% Antifa. There's been other reports done by NTNO where they've shown that he's been involved in other violent acts in Portland. So this guy had a history of violence, had claimed to be 100% Antifa, which is a domestic terrorist organization, and just didn't matter, right? But know whose background did matter? The victim. The victim now mattered. And as the CBC called him, having pro-Trump affiliations. Yes, pro-Trump's groups that were affiliated with groups that were pro-Trump. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm pretty politically astute, and I can Google this, but I don't think I need to. Is Donald Trump currently the president of the United States of America? Yes, Donald Trump is currently the president of the United States of America. So being part of a group that is pro-Trump is not a terrorist organization. That's not like saying, well, he was part of Al-Qaeda. No. He was part of a group with pro-Trump affiliations. Over 60 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. Half the country has affiliations to something that is pro-Trump. That does not make them terrorists. It doesn't make it okay to murder them. But again, you see how the media's narrative shifted on a dime. And in front of our eyes, this is just how toxic it is. And this is how you're going to get a civil war in North America soon, because you have the police who will watch violent left-wing mobs and do nothing. We saw this in Canada. They just pulled down a statue of the Founding Father, and the police do nothing. You saw it on the first day of the Kenosha riots. Just riots, the city is burning, and the police do nothing. So, yeah, in a country where you have a constitutional amendment to carry a gun and form a militia, someone's going to form a militia, and they're going to carry guns, and they're going to try and protect their city. Oh, no, what's wrong with looting? Well, no, insurance didn't cover the cost in Minnesota. People lost everything in the lootings it was a suicide, and the police just happened to be there. People lose their entire life's work in these things. And insurance payouts, you still have to rebuild, right? Insurance premiums go up, especially when whole cities burn. Not everyone has the money to cover that. People's lives are being ruined. You have left, insurance will cover it. Like, come on. Of course someone's going to form a militia, as they have a constitutional right to do, carry guns, as they have a constitutional right to do, and try and, as the left would call it, community policing, right? All of a sudden, community policing, not so in vogue anymore. Drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. Okay. Our next story, let's bring up the headline from Global News, and I'll read from this. Documents requested by House approved youth minister was key driver in We Decision NDP. So you have it there from the NDP. And, federal New Democrats, not Democrats, commies, but not liberal commies, are citing recently released documents as proof that Youth Minister Bardish Chagger was a key driver in the Liberal government's decision to have We Charity administer a multi-million-dollar student volunteer program. Now, I can go into it and read this, but all you really need to know is Bardish Chagger, Youth Minister, she claimed under oath and in committee hearings that she had nothing to do with this. She was not a key driver. Now, new documents have shown that she met with the We Charity people beforehand, and this was a key part of them getting the grant, because again, to say that the youth minister had nothing to do with a program to do with the youth, that's a bit of a stretch. Now, is this the worst thing that's ever happened in Canadian politics, Bardish Chagger lying under oath? No. Okay, it's bad. Shouldn't do it. If this was an actual government we had in our country, and our country was functioning like a country, she'd have to resign in disgrace, right? Morneau had to resign. She'd have to resign. Hopefully Trudeau will resign. But she should have to resign, but she won't. Now, the first thing I'm going to point out is this is this type of stuff that the Canadian media went ballistic over in the fake Russian collusion. Is in the Russia collusion, again, none of the original charges stuck to anyone in the Trump administration were what they were convicted on. Almost all the time, they got convicted for lying under oath for something miscellaneous, and then the media pretended, well, oh, look at them, they're criminals. Yeah, I mean, Michael Flynn was not convicted of what he was originally charged with. All of that he was found innocent of. Same with Roger Stone, right? They were all found guilty of sort of, lying under oath because, and about miscellaneous things like, did you read this article? Or did you, Roger Stone sent an article to Paul Manafort, and that's what he's guilty of. It's ridiculous. No. This was DEFCON 1 for the Canadian news media. The American news media was, of course, going ballistic, but that's what CNN's job is. They just go ballistic over everything Trump-related. But the CBC played this thing, too. They went ballistic for, they got caught lying, and this was literally a capital offense. We should kill everyone in the Trump administration because Michael Flynn lied under oath and was forced to plead guilty because the FBI threatened to go after his family. Okay, Exhibit B, Bardish Chagger, found to be lying. And where is this screaming from the Canadian media elites? I'm looking for it. I'll refresh again. I'll go home on Twitter. I follow like all the major left-wing Canadian news outlets here, and no screaming right now. No screaming. It's all fine. And again, I made this point before, and this is the Hillary email thing. The big thing with Hillary Clinton's email scandal, yes, you're not supposed to have a private email server, but that wasn't the big crime. The crime was she was sending confidential messages and information over a private email server where people her cleaning lady had access to private information. Also, the real scandal was the fact that she was selling confidential information to people who were donating money to the Clinton Foundation, and there were a lot of Gulf state billionaires and Russian corporations. That was the real scandal. And then she lied about it on oath, and she destroyed evidence. Right? All of that was much worse than anything Trump did, but it wasn't a big deal. The media obfuscated for saying, ooh, Trump and the crazy Republicans with their email stuff. And it wasn't an email scandal. It was the fact that she lied under oath about selling confidential, but the real thing was the selling confidential information to political donors, right? And then lying about it and destroying evidence. That was the real crime. Obstruction of justice, contempt of Congress, and all that. But I get back in. So we just have another minister being caught lying about something important. Again, if this was John Chrétien's Canada, if this was Stephen Harper's Canada, Bardish Chagger would have to resign. She will not resign because she has connections to Calistani extremism. Or alleged connections to the Calistani movement. Or she does not go against the Calistani movement. And I guarantee you, no Calistani will get kicked out of that cabinet. And this is my assertion that the Calistani movement is rampant and powerful inside the Liberal government is not originally from me. Well, I mean, I have been saying it. But Liberal backbench MP Ramesh Sangha said the same thing, that the Liberal government's caucus and cabinet is infiltrated with Calistani extremism. And I guarantee you, Navdeep Bains, Minister of Corruption, will protect her. That's my call. No one in Navdeep Bains' inner circle will ever get kicked out of government. Because listen, we could talk about Ahmed Hussein and his corruption. You could talk about Omar al-Ghabra and being Minister of Muslim Brotherhood infiltration. The most corrupt Liberal minister is Navdeep Bains. And anyone with the ties to the Calistani movement will not get kicked out of Canadian Parliament. And again, this is another reason why you can't have foreign political extremist ideologies in your cabinet. One, it ruins our relationship with India because the Calistani movement is basically terrorists in India. But two, it creates these hardline movements where it functions like the mafia, where they protect each other. Right? So I guarantee you that Navdeep Bains will use his political power to protect Bardish Chagger. And any one of those corrupt Liberal MPs, all the Liberals that went on the India trip with Trudeau, none of them are touchable. They're all untouchable. It's just what I'm saying. Allegedly. Okay, let's move on to the next story. This is really disturbing. And I really feel for this father, and I really feel for all parents who are really scared of the type of radical gender ideology being pushed on their children in schools. Because remember when Jordan Peterson said, it's bad, Bill C-16, the transgender, adding the transgenderism to the Canadian human rights protections compels speech? And I made the argument before in previous shows, and I have all those videos up. I mean, if you look at it, you know, the way gender identity, so both gender identity and gender expression are protected under Canadian law. And gender expression is so overly nebulous that it protects pretty much anything. And I've gone over what constitutes discrimination. We've gone and done that all before. The laws are so nebulous and poorly written that you can be charged with almost anything. Now, the media elites and the intellectual elites and the academic elites came out and said Jordan Peterson is a crazy person. You know, no one's religious liberties will ever be violated. Canada has freedom of speech. You can criticize this law. However, Jordan Peterson almost got fired from school, U of T, for making a video saying, I think Bill C-16 makes it illegal to criticize Bill C-16. Now we're about to see that in Vancouver, where you have a father of a 14-year-old girl who wants to transition. And this started years ago. So we're talking about a 10 to 12-year-old girl, I believe, who in school, because of the SOGI curriculum, saw that her school was pushing that if you have some sort of gender dysphoria, you might be the opposite sex. After she saw that in school, she then decided to want to take hormone blockers. Now, the mom wants to transition the kid, the dad does not. And here's where tragedy comes through it. So we don't really know what's going on in this family exactly. You know, it sucks when people get divorced. You hope it never happens. This is also a cautionary tale to all you kids out there. Again, don't take marriage advice from me. I'm not married. I'm terrible with women. This is not the show to get your dating advice from. But general good life advice is try and find out where the person you want to marry stands on important issues like this. Like, if you don't want your kids to be pumped full of experimental hormone drugs, maybe talk to your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or girlfriend at the time. Ask them how they think about this. And if you're someone who says, hey, I would never want to perform medical experiments on my children, make sure that your boyfriend or girlfriend feels the same way. Because if they don't, if they're like, no, if a 4-year-old says they're the opposite gender, they're the opposite gender, and you must respect that. You might get into a point where you might love this person, you might have the same taste in music, you might like the same TV shows, you might have great conversations, she might be really funny, he might be really funny. But what happens if you have a 5-year-old and says, Mommy, I don't think I'm a boy, I'm a girl. And you say, no, you're a boy. But then your spouse says, no, you're a girl. You tear your family apart. And that's what happened in BC. So you have medical experiments being done on children. Sorry, trans children, protect trans children and all that. And this is one of the reasons why I really like Derek Sloan, is because he actually would talk about this issue. I mean, all the true blue conservatives like Aaron O'Toole, like, listen, I'm all in favor of gay rights. And I think one of the major gay human rights issues, gay and lesbian human rights issues right now is gay and lesbian children are under attack from transgender ideology. Because studies show, every study shown, that gender dysphoria is real in children. Sometimes children think they're the opposite sex. You know, my brother, the first thing he ever wanted to be, I remember he was 3, he wanted to be a pig when he grew up. I said, that's stupid, you can't be a pig. My mom says, don't make fun of your brother. But good thing I made fun of my brother, or else he might be crawling around on all 4s if he went to a more liberal school. Hey, every study shows that the vast majority, it's like the best case scenario for the transgender activist is 60%. The other was 90%. So let's split the difference. Let's say 75% of kids who experience gender dysphoria, by the time they're adults, turn out to just be gay or lesbian. They settle into the gender ideology, they were a bit confused because they didn't know they were gay, they didn't know they were lesbian. It turns out they are a man, they might just, you know, be a bit different than the other guys. They are a woman, they might just have a bit different. Maybe they're not even lesbian, maybe they're just a bit of a tomboy, who knows? But the vast majority of kids who experience gender dysphoria, the vast majority, by the time they're 18, are fine and settle into the sex they were born with. But now we're saying, no, let's ignore science. No, sorry, the left loves science. So instead, what we have is a substitute for science. You're getting religion substituted for science, and a fake religion at that. We're talking about the religion of wokeism, where you have social sciences, and I've seen this. I went to university. Sociology, it's a cult. It's not a science. But you have these social sciences, these gender studies, female trans studies, black feminist, lesbian poetry studies, and people get PhDs in this, so they become doctors. And this isn't real science, but you have someone with a doctorate in sociology then saying, okay, as a doctor in, lesbian dance theory, I can tell you the science on gender dysphoria, and we must protect trans children, which means pumping them full of hormones, puberty blockers, right, to alleviate their stress. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of an insight into how the medical community works. I know a lot of doctors. I was raised by them. I love them. They're great people. Here's a flaw of doctors. Doctors are very smart, but smart man's flaw is they tend to think they know everything. So you have a lot of very arrogant doctors who think they know everything. A really good doctor knows that, hey, they might be a general practice doctor, they might be just family, they will listen to specialists. Because again, in order to be a specialist, in order to be like a dermatologist, you need another 4 years of dermatology training after your 4 years of medical school. To be a cardiologist, you need another 4 years of cardiology training in order to deal with the heart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oncology, all these different things take 4 more years of specialized training. So good doctors go to conferences and learn from the experts in these fields. However, what's happening is the experts in the transgender field are being purged in favor of ideological nonsense. So this was the Ken Zucker thing, who was like a big transgender activist, lost his job at CAMH for saying you shouldn't immediately try and transition children, you should look for other methods, right? And he's been kicked out. So you have this system where any doctor who sort of knows about these things and is willing to speak out, they're being excommunicated. Then the transgender experts are being imported, and the transgender experts aren't really medically trained physicians. They're ideologues coming in to train doctors. So good doctors, and I know this because I've talked to some of them, and they're blind, I don't yell at them, but they come in and they listen to the transgender specialists. And what the transgender specialists will tell them is that there is a threat to the life of the child if they hit puberty. So if you have a gender dysphoric child, let's say there's an 11-year-old boy or girl, and they say, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl, or I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. The medical experts, contrary to all scientific evidence, are saying, if you do not force that kid to stop puberty, if you don't institute these experimental hormone blockers on the kids, well, then their risk of suicide when they hit puberty is exponentially high. So that's the justification being used. Now, anyone who loves science, like I do, like the left claims to do, you would know that in order to sort of determine what the best outcomes for children are, you need double-blind, preferably longitudinal studies. That's a good study. Double-blind longitudinal studies, that's how you can prove this. However, these hormone blockers and these puberty blockers, it's so new, right? This ideology sort of came crashing on the scene like, what, 2015? We're at like 5 years. And yet the science is already settled on no issue dealing with children and their mental development long-term. Could you ever decide anything scientifically within 5 years? It's just not possible. You would need double-blind longitudinal studies. This work would take, for any sort of scientific study of value to come out on sort of the effects of hormone blockers coming out long-term, you would need at least decades before you get any legitimate preliminary studies on this. Yet we're just pumping these kids full of hormones, stopping their puberty, which no is not reversible, sometimes mutilating them, cutting off their genitals in crazy experimental surgeries, right? All for the sake of protecting trans children. And I make the mistake that this is the biggest assault on gay and lesbian children. Because again, most of these kids are just gay. Most of them are just gay or lesbian. And to me, that's fine. I don't care. Gay marriage. Go marry yourself. Go marry the gays. I don't care about that issue. But right we have a system where there's a good majority of gay and lesbian children, and we're not just saying, it's okay to be gay, it's okay to have feelings, whatever, gays can get married, lesbians can get married, that's fine. We're actually taking it one step further. We're saying, no, you're not gay, you're a woman, right? Can you imagine if this was like, just imagine if there was no if you didn't know anything about transgenderism, and it was like the Ayatollah. Essentially, this is what the Ayatollah is. This is actually Iran. No, this is a great thing, because this is the Ayatollah in Iran. The Iranian Ayatollah actually did this, right? They hang gays in Iran. Being gay is a capital offense in Iran. But some doctor went up to the Ayatollah in the 1980s. This is actually a true story. Went up to the Ayatollah and said, no, some of them, they're not really men or women. Like, homosexuality is bad, but some of them are actually men and women. So, he's like, okay, so we'll make the gay men women, and we'll make the lesbian women men. And the Ayatollah said, sure, whatever. So that's why there's lots of like transition, and this is what's happening in Iran, is in order to survive, gay men are claiming to be women. Now, you do that in Iran, that makes sense in Iran, because if you're gay in Iran, they will actually murder you and hang you from a crane. But that's the type of warped logic that a Islamo-fascist nation uses. But now that type of logic is being given to you by, the Toronto District School Board, or more specifically, the school board in Vancouver, which is saying that this father, who might go to jail on contempt of court charges because he's opposing the transitioning of his teenage daughter. It's insane. And I've even gone into the thing of, if you give puberty-blocking hormones to young children, this is how insane this is. This is how insane. If you give a young boy puberty-blocking hormones to make him into a girl, because let's say he really is a girl. Let's say you have a 9-year-old boy, and that's really a girl. Yes, he has a penis, and he has testosterone and testicles, but that's really a girl. Okay, let's just go with that. There's a famous case, the Jazz Jennings, the person on TLC. You give this person the puberty blockers. You stop them from puberty. You stop them from their shoulders broadening. You stop them from getting a deeper voice. You've saved their life. Their genitals don't develop if you give them puberty blockers. That means they have a child's genitals, which means even if that is a woman, which it's not, but let's say it is, you've stopped them from going through puberty. They have a child's genital, which means you don't even have the ability to perform the surgery to turn the penis into the vagina. That's how insane this is. It makes no sense. It takes 3 seconds of thinking about the transgender ideology before it all explodes. 3 seconds, it's all it takes. And even if it's true, even if you say everything they are saying is true despite all evidence to the contrary, if you just believe strong enough, even if you do that, and then you get to the end of it, you're still putting them through experimental surgeries and hormone treatments that make it so they can't even do the full transition when they're a consenting adult. That's how insane this all is. And a father in British Columbia is standing up and he wants to stop this from happening to his child, and he might go to jail for 35 to 40 days. And we're not allowed to name the doctors involved in these procedures, and this doctor apparently has kids in his clinic with gender dysphoria as young as 2. 2 years old, saying I know a toddlers. They don't have it, they can't say a sentence. I was 2, and I said, I'm going to stick my finger in a noodle, and my parents still talk about it because that's the most coherent thing I said at that age. And we're saying, oh, well, what if these kids are transgender? It's absolute insanity, and we have to stop performing medical experiments on our kids. I suggest you follow Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson. She's done a great job standing up to this. She's facing contempt of court charges, Jen Smith as well. There's a lot of great activists in Vancouver who have been fighting back at this, and the way to my heart is to fight insane legal battles against evil people. But medical experiments on children. And the warped thing is, the people being hurt by this the most are the LGBTQ whatever community. Because even if these kids are trans and you're getting to them early, you're preventing their bodies from developing so they can't even medically transition when they're older. And most of them are just gay. And you're performing life-altering, life-destroying surgeries on gay and lesbian kids before they turn out. It's absolute madness. Absolute madness. Will I go to the Human Rights Tribunal? I'll go to the Human Rights. I don't care. I'll go to the Human Rights Tribunal on this one. This is a battle worth fighting. It's just absolute madness. It drives me crazy. All right. We brought up the Ayatollah in Iran. So let's bring up our friend the Ayatollah Khomeini. That's the next thing in the queue. So here we have. I love this in the UAE peace plan. The nation of Palestine, there is no nation of Palestine, is under attack. Severe pressures. The UAE is in agreement with the Israelis and the Zionist agents, the filthy Zionist agents in the U.S. Blah blah blah. They're backstabbing the Muslims. Trump, and this is an Sorry about that, and we are back. My technical difficulties. So again, my friend the Ayatollah Khomeini, child murderer extraordinaire, gay murderer extraordinaire, wrestling protester, murderer extraordinaire, generally all-around awful human being, does a great job of making the Palestinian case. He is one of the best representatives for the Palestinian cause because he calls it out like it is, right? The UAE is backstabbing all the Muslims, right? This isn't about Palestinians or Israelis. This is about an ego thing. This is about the fact that a nation in a place that was once under a caliphate of the Ottoman Empire rose up, and the Jewish people carved out self-determination there. It's the exact same reason why Al-Qaeda, when they first started, was bombing East Timor and Indonesia, because they were mad that East Timor was once under Islamic control, but then Christians got control of East Timor, right? So they started blowing things up. Same reason why ISIS was in the Philippines, because some Filipino islands had Muslim control. Then the Philippines became a nation. And how dare Christian people ever have self-determination, and someone in a Muslim nation is under Christianity. Now, again, this isn't the actual thoughts of most Muslim people. Like, most Muslim people aren't walking around Canada like, grrr, we're being controlled by Christian people, grrr. This is the Ayatollah's battle cry. This is a Palestinian thing. So I bring this up because the Ayatollah Khomeini is a great advocate for the Palestinian people, but let's bring on the other advocate for the Palestinian cause, which is a 6-year-old child being put on Palestinian TV to give his views on the Jews and this peace deal. Do we have this clip?
السلام عليكم. بدي أعلق على موضوع مهم وبزعل كتير. أنا مش فاهم كيف ناس عرب زينا ومسلمين راحوا يشتغلوا مع اليهود اللي خانوا العهد مع الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا عربي يا مسلم، كيف بتتعاون مع يهودي قاتل مجرم بتفرقش معاه بقتل طفل أخذ أرضنا وسماها إسرائيل مطبعين. بس أنا بحب أحكي لكم حاجة، إنه هذه أرضنا ومش للبيع، وهذا وعد الله وربنا عز وجل وعدنا إنه إحنا إن شاء الله حناخد أرضنا من اليهود غصب عنه. والله أكبر والنصر للإسلام.
Again, another great example of Palestinian activists. A 6-year-old child saying things like, how could you collaborate with a Jew or a murderer? Again, don't listen to the evil Zionist lobby when it comes to the Israel issue. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to your best friend. Don't listen to the CBC. Listen to the Palestinians themselves. Listen to the Palestinians. I want people to listen to the Palestinian point of view, watch Palestinian TV, listen to what they say, and see their point of view. Their point of view is, how dare the Jews exist? Let's kill them all. Victory for Islam. That's their point of view. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Palestinian TV. That's what they want to do. All right. Final story. Speaking of the Ayatollah Khomeini, we have a new story that I promised I wouldn't swear here, but this story is going to test the limits of my self-control, because George Soros. Okay, there was a controversy in Canada, and we have the Canadian Jewish Record, or Capo Corp, run by my old nemesis, Bernie Farber. And they run an editorial. Finley apology, not good enough. This story is insane, and it drives me up the wall. Now, I always say, you will never find someone who hates the Zionist lobby more than me. And I'm the biggest Zionist you'll find. I'm unapologetically Zionist, okay? You're not allowed to destroy Israel. I think the anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. I think it's all insane. But do you know who the biggest anti-Zionist in the world is? George Soros. George Soros funds every single anti-Semitic, anti-Israel group out there, right? He's one of the chief funders of BLM. BLM has on their website that they want to, they're anti-Zionist, right? If Not Now, which is a fake Jewish organization that just makes me want to vomit every time I see something they tweet out. If Not Now is like Jews. The goal of If Not Now is to have people who claim to be Jewish protect anti-Semites. Like, that's the goal of If Not Now. And the way the left works, and If Not Now is a great example, because it's part of a wider momentum movement where there's a bunch of affiliated organizations like the Sunrise Movement, Where you come into college and you have tables and you say, hey, do you care about the environment? And you're 18 and you care about the environment. You like trees? Yeah, I like trees. Join the sunrise movement. Yay! Oh, there's a hot girl. She's telling me about trees. I like her. Trees good. Yeah, who doesn't like trees? I like trees. You like trees. We all like trees. Hey, you like trees? You might like this. If you like trees, you might not like Jews. Sorry, not Jews, Zionists. So you have trees are good. And Palestinians are good. You like trees, you like Palestinians, if not now, here's sunrise. This is kind of how it works. And a lot of these organizations are Soros funded. Who is George Soros? George Soros is a 90-year-old billionaire who funds a lot of far-left activism. Right? He is very anti-American, he's very Western civilization, he's pro-China. Now, Finley, this conservative politician, got in trouble for posting a video where Chrystia Freeland, who is a very important figure, who the Liberals are trying to pump up as their next leader, if Navdeep Bains can't take it away from her, Chrystia Freeland is doing an interview with George Soros. And they're talking about how they want to bring China into the New World Order, right? How we need to be more reliant on Chinese markets. The whole interview. But I think that's rather important, that you have liberal ministers talking about, yeah, I think we need to give more power to the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And they're comfy with George Soros and taking money from his organizations and working with him. Now, I'm one of those people who say, just because someone is, somewhat involved in an organization that's funded by George Soros doesn't mean they're controlled by George Soros. Again, my left-wing brother, who is wrong about literally all his political opinions, even though he's a smart and great and kind person. He's not a senior member, but he joined If Not Now because he has stupid lefty opinions, even though he shouldn't. But is the reason he believes what he believes because George Soros is paying him? No. Not everyone who hates Western civilization is being directly paid by George Soros to do so. I don't think money is as influential as people give it credit for. No, I don't think Soros, controls the world. But is George Soros trying to tip the balances and actually has a bit of a finger on the scale in a way that is anti-Western? Yeah. Yeah, he does. Is that something worth talking about? Yes, it is. Is it anti-Semitic? No. No, why are people calling it anti-Semitic? Why did B'nai B'rith, which isn't always useless, but most of the time useless, being super useless here, why are they going after this? One, because it's easy. And that's how the Zionist lobby works. We don't take on the tough causes. We don't take on any cause where we might lose or there might be slight pushback. That's why the Zionist lobby will never go after the Muslim Brotherhood, even though it goes hard after them, because they know they'll punch back and they're scared. Right? Again, one of the chief distinctions, one of the defining characteristics of major Jewish organizations is cowardice. Okay? And a lot of this is really easy, because you can just say, oh, this plays into old anti-Semitic stereotypes. And it kind of does. Globalism is an anti-Semitic ideology in its inception, or anti-Jewish. I wouldn't say anti-Semitic. No, that's wrong, because anti-Semitism is sort of hatred of Jews. I will make the argument that globalism is actually, right, globalism and nationalism contradict. But globalism is an ideology that is anti-Jewish in its nature, because the concept of the nation state actually comes from the Old Testament, right? The New Testament, Jesus, that's sort of where you get the more individual tent to Western civilization. This is why people say these are Judeo-Christian values, because the Judeo part is the nation, right? And this is the complicated thing. So is George Soros Jewish? Yeah, he is, unfortunately, okay? Born to a Jewish mother. There is no excommunication mechanism in Judaism. You don't get kicked out for not being Jewish enough. It isn't like Islam where you can be an apostate. It isn't like Christianity or the Catholic Church where you can be excommunicated, or like some factions. I'm not the biggest expert in Christianity, all of them. Christians, you have way too many factions for me to keep track of what you all believe, right? But some people born again, some not born again, whatever it is. Judaism, there's no excommunication method. So technically, anyone born Jewish is sort of always Jewish. Unless you sort of convert into another religion, but for the most part, if you become a Jewish atheist, you're still technically Jewish. Because there is the Jewish people. Am Yisrael is what you're called in the Bible. So the Bible, the Old Testament, doesn't mention Jews. The term Jews comes from Judea. This is mostly what we call now the West Bank, right? The kingdom of Judea. Jacob had 12 sons. They had 12 tribes of Israel. The two kingdoms split. There was Israel, and then there was Judea. The kingdom of Israel was destroyed by the Babylonians. The Judaic kingdom stood. So Jews are from Judea. It's actually a sort of religious nationalism. A geographical religious nationalism in a way. So the concept of the nation state, the nation, the people that make up a nation, comes a lot from the Old Testament. right? Which is why saying, oh, there is no people, we must be globalist, right? We must give sovereignty to the UN and globalism, right? This is an anti-nation ideology, right? And I'd say anti-Western too, and sort of anti-Jewish. And you can make the argument it's anti-Christian as well. I'm just here to talk about the Jewish element. Now, do the criticisms of George Soros play on classic anti-Semitic stereotypes? Yeah. But just because there's anti-Semitic stereotypes about Jews controlling the bank and Jews having too much money and Jews having too much power doesn't mean you can't criticize billionaires who are actively trying to undermine your democracy. That would paralyze us. And this is one of the reasons why I sort of hate these sort of Illuminati conspiracies, which lump all the billionaires in together. Like when you lump the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and Soros and Sheldon Adelson and all these different people into the same group, it's incoherent because George Soros and the Rockefellers aren't Jewish, by the way, but Soros and the Rockefellers are very, very anti-Zionist. They fund anti-Zionist things. The Rockefellers also fund all this anti-Canadian oil stuff because they own American oil. So they all like the global environmental movements, and a lot of that's Rockefeller. But then you have the Rothschilds. And the Rothschilds are harder because that's like old family. Soros is just like sort of self-made. But old family. Let's use Sheldon Adelson. There is nothing that Sheldon Adelson and George Soros agree on. Both of them are Jewish billionaires. Both of them throw a lot of money into the political theater, but neither of them agree on anything. Right? The fact that they're in Congress, like, so to lump them into the same conspiracy makes no sense. Now, can you criticize George Soros in an anti-Semitic way? Yeah. Usually when you talk about, if you call George Soros a Zionist, you're probably wrong and you're probably saying something anti-Semitic because George Soros is an anti-Zionist, right? So if you say George Soros and Benjamin Netanyahu are trying to control you, no, those two people hate each other. If Benjamin Netanyahu was in a room with George Soros, Netanyahu was in the army, George Soros is dead. He's going to kill George Soros, and I'm not going to cry. Right? So to lump them into the same thing, that's when you can get into the thing. But if you say, here's all the bad things George Soros is doing, he's pouring money, and the Open Society funds this, and Black Lives Matter funds this group, and you have If Not Now saying this, and you have the Sunrise Movement saying this, and all this, and here are George Soros' statements. He was a Nazi collaborator, and he's an unapologetic Nazi collaborator. If you're going after George Soros for everything he's doing, good for you. You are doing a great service to the Jewish people. And now we have groups like B'nai B'rith and the Canadian Jewish Record, which is Bernie Farber's newspaper, attacking Canadian politicians for going after George Soros because George Soros is coming after Canada. This is the type of nonsense that drives anti-Semitism. Because when the people, the self-proclaimed Jewish leaders, when the people who get on CBC radio and say, I'm a representative of the Jewish community, by the way, if anyone says they're a representative of the Jewish community, it means they don't represent the Jewish community. Same thing with blacks, gays, or whatever. But they get up there, and then they say, no, I'm the representative, and oh, this is very anti-Semitic. So stop lumping us in with George Soros. Because if you don't want to push the narrative that Jews are trying to destroy Western civilization, which the Jewish people are not, try not to lump all Jews in with George Soros. Because when George Soros, who is actively trying to destroy Western civilization, funding anti-Canadian, anti-American, anti-Israel groups, right, and you're criticizing that, and you say, oh, this is anti-Semitism, then people are just going to say, fine, if this is a representative of the Jewish community, same thing I say with Muslims and Islamic Relief. Stop calling Islamic Relief the representative of the Muslim community. Stop calling George Soros the representative of the Jewish community. Yeah, George Soros is Jewish. It's unfortunate. There's no communication mechanism. I wish we could kick him out. I wish we would say, no, he was kicked out by this council of rabbis. We don't have a mechanism. He's Jewish. He's an evil person. Criticize him. He's trying to undermine your country, my country, the Jewish people, Christian people, everyone. Stop him. Come on. It's not that hard. It drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. Okay. So this is going to be the end of this week's show. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, big announcement. Next week, we will be starting the Thursday night show called Civil Space. Yes, and there'll be some guests coming on and some surprise guests, some old friends. You're going to love it. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell. If you're on Facebook, like and share. Always share. Get a tattoo of my face onto your face. Name your children after me. Name all your kids after me. Name a pet after me. Let me know you care. If you want to contribute to my legal defense fund, please click the links below. We're going to court on September 14th. It's going to be a hootenanny. And again, if you want to come see me, come out of retirement to go back into stand-up comedy this Friday, East End of the city, in some random guy's backyard, be there or don't be there. I guess those are your two options. Until then, I will see you next Wednesday, same bat time, same bad place.